Hello everyone and welcome to today's edition of Liberty Action Network TV. I'm your host Doreen Finkel, and folks, today we are going to be talking about the Second Amendment. Recently this amendment has come under attack, particularly in New Jersey, a lot of other states also, and our rights are being curtailed. And with us here today is our guest, Frank Fiamingo. He's president of the New Jersey Second Amendment Society. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Thank you very much, Doreen, and thank you for inviting me.
Can you, Frank, give us a little background about the Second Amendment and what our forefathers had intended this amendment?
Sure, certainly. The original intention of the Second Amendment was to keep the balance of power in the hands of the people where it belongs, in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And this is something that I think that has been forgotten in recent history, especially in the more densely populated areas such as New Jersey, California, Massachusetts, and Maryland, some of these northeastern states in particular. People don't seem to remember that our nation was born out of revolution. Mm-hmm. The colonists faced oppression, suppression from the British, and when they complained, the reaction of the British was to disarm the people, to attempt to disarm the people. And it's little known fact that that was basically what sparked the beginning of the fight, the revolution. And so our forefathers, when they framed the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they wanted to make sure that indeed the right of the people to keep and bear arms wouldn't be infringed. And keep in mind, by the way, the Second Amendment, just like the other Bill of Rights, exists as a warning to the government that they should not infringe on the rights of the people.
But it seems to be today that the government is infringing upon the rights of the people.
It is indeed.
Take New Jersey, for example, and this past year, our laws, the governor has signed several into law mm-hmm. to make the right to own a gun harder.
This is true. We faced a situation after the Newtown, Connecticut shootings, which between people who really put some thought into it, they understand that really has nothing whatsoever to do with the legitimate rights of law-abiding firearms owners to own and to keep and bear arms. This was the action of a disturbed individual who killed his own mother, took her weapons, he didn't own these weapons legitimately, he took her weapons, her firearms, and he used them to kill children at a school as if he was in some kind of sick video game. This was not a normal law-abiding individual we're talking about. This is a probably psychotic individual, out of touch with reality. So to have a reaction to that then prompted almost 80 bills were brought up and proposed in our legislature in the New Jersey legislature to infringe upon the rights of law-abiding citizens.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense. There was a total disconnect. But indeed they did. They flooded the legislature with bills, and then the bills that did make it through to the Law and Public Safety Committee, you will remember that we went down and we testified, as to how they affected the law-abiding firearms owner.
And what are some of these laws that may be encroaching upon the person's right?
Well, for instance, the one bill in particular that we really had a lot of argument with is called the Sweeney Omnibus bill. And Senate President Sweeney touted this as his centerpiece of the gun control legislation. And what it did indeed do was throw out the system that we have used for years that has worked well, which is you apply for a firearms owner's identification card, and once you go through the criminal background check, the mental health screening, the fingerprinting, the references, the employer verification, and you're thoroughly vetted, you then receive this firearms owner identification card that's good for life. right? Which really only allows allows you to purchase ammunition and long guns, rifles, shotguns, and things like that. If you want to purchase a handgun, then you have to get additionally something called a pistol purchase permit or a handgun purchase permit. And if you go at some future point to get that, you have to go through the exact same criminal background check, mental health screening, and so forth to be issued a pistol purchase permit. Now, some people will say, well, how can a firearms owner identification card be good for life? What if you do something between the time that you receive that FID card and the time you go to purchase something? Aha. Well, they thought of that. There's something called the National Instant Criminal System check, okay? So that every time you actually go to the point of purchase and you show up and say, okay, I would like to purchase that firearm, they then pick up the phone and they call the New Jersey State Police, SBI, State Bureau of Investigation, which then does this check with the FBI. And it's all in a database and it's all kept up to date. It includes anybody that's been adjudicated mentally incompetent and anyone who's committed a violent felony. So it's not like you're not being checked. In New Jersey, you're checked and rechecked.
And checked again.
Again, exactly.
So now, let's say I go to purchase a gun, okay, at any one of these places here, okay, and we talked about this before. After I purchase the gun, I heard you guys say, well, you have to go straight home because then there's a carrying.
Right. The way that the laws are written in New Jersey, to make it as simple as possible to understand, there is no such thing as possession of a firearm in New Jersey. You may not possess a firearm in New Jersey. You may purchase a firearm, and I'm talking specifically about handguns now. Long guns are handled a little bit differently. Shotguns and rifles and so forth are in a different category. But let's just talk about handguns for a moment. You may purchase a handgun and keep it in your home for self-defense. That is perfectly acceptable. It can be loaded, you can wear it in a holster, you can march around your house with it. However, unless you have a carry permit, which by the way they don't issue in New Jersey unless you're a police officer, armored car driver, or something, a private investigator, and even they have a difficult time getting them. You're not going to get a carry permit in New Jersey, and the reason is you have to demonstrate what they call a justifiable need to carry a firearm. Well, they don't accept self-defense as a justifiable need. You have to actually, the way that the courts interpret a justifiable need is there has to be an immediate threat to your life. So basically, unless you walk into the police station with somebody holding a gun to your head, you're not going to get a carry permit. The judge will not grant it to you. So let's go back to what you can do then, right? Once you've purchased this handgun, you can take it from your home to the range and back again, point A to point B, with what they consider to be only reasonable deviations. Now, I don't know what that means. There's no legal definition of reasonable. What we have determined it means is whatever the police officer who happens to stop you and the prosecutor who happens to get the case decide is reasonable.
So let's say you go to purchase a handgun, okay, and you're on your way home, and you get stopped by a police officer.
That's one of the exemptions. So to and from the range, to and from the point of purchase, of course, to and from a gunsmith to get it repaired. They're very when in the process of moving from one place where you're legally allowed to own the firearm to another place where you're illegally allowed to own the firearm. So let's say you had a residence in Pennsylvania.
And when you carry the gun, it's not supposed to be loaded.
When you transport it, the only way that you can transport, if you don't have a carry permit, which again you're not going to get in New Jersey, is it must be locked away in the trunk of your car, unloaded, okay? Or if you don't have a trunk, like let's say you have a pickup truck, it must be locked in a locked case or what they call a securely tied package. I'm not sure exactly what would be considered a securely tied package, and it's not supposed to be accessible to you as the passenger or to any passenger in your vehicle. So In other words, it has to be carried
Okay.
and transported in such a way where it won't do
Let
you
me tell
any good whatsoever.
Most people who buy a handgun, especially if they're new, they don't know that. They pick it up from the store and it's in a bag.
That's correct. Well, it's not usually in a bag. There is a case. Usually the case isn't locked. You know, they're assuming that the point of purchase is assuming that you're going to put it in your trunk, and they'll tell you that. They'll tell you that you have to transport it locked in your trunk and so forth. However, you know, if you show up with a pickup truck and you don't have a trunk and you don't have a locked case, you may wind up having to buy a safe to transport it home because it's supposed to be locked in a locked container.
Now, can you tell us of some cases in New Jersey?
Absolutely. There was a case, Brian Aiken, it's a gentleman who, young man, who actually was originally a Jersey boy. He moved to Colorado with his wife. They had a child there, and as things happen, they separated, and she moved back to New Jersey with the child. And it so happens that their parents lived fairly close to each other, so she moved back in with her parents. He decided to move back in to Jersey, but temporarily he was moving in with his parents, and then he was establishing a residence in Hoboken. So he transported his firearms, his handguns, they were unloaded, locked in the trunk of his car. He had some accessories, magazines, and hollow point bullets, which you are allowed to transport hollow point bullets to the range. Strangely, there is no guidelines in the statutes that say specifically that you're allowed to transport hollow point bullets when you're moving. So I don't know what you're supposed to do with them if you own hollow point bullets. Leave them behind for somebody to find? I don't know, but theoretically, but you are allowed to transport your firearms. However, what happened was, I won't go into all the details as to why the police were called, but the police show up. They find that he has these handguns and accessories in his vehicle, and they arrest him. Now he goes to court. The judge refuses to read instruct the jury about the exemption for moving. So without that, the jury had no choice but to convict him. So he was convicted of 3 felonies: possession of illegal, unlawful possession of a firearm, possession of a 16-round magazine, and possession of hollow point bullets, and he was sent to prison for 7 years. We have something in New Jersey called the Graves Act, right? If you commit a crime involving a firearm, you don't have to hold up a Wawa or whatever. Possession of a firearm, basically, in New Jersey is illegal. So he was convicted of 7. The Graves Act engaged mandatory minimum sentences, 7 to 10 years, the minimum 5, 3 years without parole. All right. He was convicted and sent to prison for 7 years, and would be rotting there today if there wasn't such an uproar from the 2A community across the nation. We all got together, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, ANJRPC, all of the Second Amendment groups got together and petitioned the Governor Christie, to commute his sentence, which indeed Governor Christie did do, and I give him credit for making that decision. Otherwise, Brian would be rotting in jail right now. But he still has to, now he was able to appeal 2 of the convictions, and he did overturn them, but for some reason they're still holding him as guilty of a felony on the hollow point bullets, which, by the way, people do not understand. Hollow point bullets are not cop killer bullets. Everybody says, oh, hollow point bullets are cop killer bullets. They're not. Hollow point bullets are the normal type of ammunition that you want to have in your home, because when they strike your intended target, they don't pass through generally. What they do is they disintegrate inside your target, rather than go through the target, through your sheetrock, and hit one of your kids or your husband or your wife, right? So hollow point bullets are probably the safest round to use. Law enforcement officers often only use hollow point bullets to avoid collateral damage, and they'll tell you they'd rather get shot, if they're wearing a vest, a Kevlar, they'd rather get shot with a hollow point bullet than anything else, because it disintegrates rather than goes through.
Right.
Okay, so just to clarify what those really are.
So in New Jersey, we really have an uphill battle here.
Extremely hard uphill battle.
And that's probably why you started NJ2AS,
I
right?
started NJ2AS. Quick story, I didn't grow up around guns. I wasn't a hunter. No one in my family shot or went shooting or competed or anything like that. And at 61 years old, I went to visit my brother in Florida, and he is a shooter. And there, the laws are completely different. You can have a firearm, loaded firearm in your car for your protection. And it's considered part of your domicile, which it should be. So anyway, we went shooting, and I enjoyed it. And when I came back to New Jersey, I decided that I was going to purchase a firearm, and I went through the process. When I thought about, what they were doing, okay, wow, I felt like a criminal. I got fingerprinted, a background check, mental health check, and everything. But I said, all right, I don't want to see firearms in the hands of criminals, so I'm willing to subject myself to this if it keeps firearms out of the hands of criminals. Of course, it doesn't, because criminals won't go through this process, right? They go to the corner and buy the gun from Louis.
Right.
So at any rate, what happened was I wanted to learn more, educate myself, so I joined this group called the New Jersey Gun Forums. It's just an online place, like a bulletin board thing, and chatting with the people, and I kept hearing over and over and over again all these people complaining about how bad it was. So I said, well, let's do something about it. So 10 of us sat around my kitchen table one day, and this was in July of 2010. We sat down and we said, okay, we're going to formulate this club, this society, and the New Jersey Second Amendment Society was born. That was in July of 2010 with 10 people, and now we have multiple thousands of members. So.
And they're all from New Jersey, or?
No, actually, believe it or not, we have members from, I wouldn't say all of the states, but a very good representation of the states. We have Texas and Oklahoma and Kentucky, and we have a couple of people here and there, Florida.
So do you guys actually have like a set mission, or?
Yes. Our mission is education, promotion, and celebration. That's the way I break it down. We want to educate both the public and the legislature about the safe and responsible use of firearms. Okay, because with every serious right comes an equal amount of responsibility. There is no such thing as a right without a responsibility. Two sides of the same coin. So we want to educate the public and the legislature on the safe and responsible use of firearms. We want to also promote the safe and responsible use of firearms. We do that in a number of different ways. We have first shoots, introductory shoots for people who have never been exposed to it, where they get a quick education on safety. And they get an opportunity to try out a number of different firearms in a very safe, controlled environment. We have meetings. We go to Trenton and we testify whenever there's an issue involving firearms or the attempt to try and control the law-abiding firearms owner, or not control, but impose obstacles to the legal ownership of firearms. And then the celebration aspect. People find that odd. But we picked the name New Jersey Second Amendment Society for a reason. This is a tough fight. You mentioned it's an uphill battle. The only way we're going to get through it is by having social, getting to know each other, and we do this through a number of different media. We do it through social media with Facebook. We have a very active Facebook group under NJ2AS. We have a women's Facebook group. We also have meetings and parties, and we have something coming up where we're celebrating the memory of one of our members who passed away earlier this year, Marine, by the name of Art Barton, who we have tremendous amount of love and respect for. And so we try to get together and get to know each other, because we need to support each other in this fight.
So how is the women's participation?
Very good. I would say the single largest increase in gun ownership is among women in New Jersey and throughout the nation. And there's a good reason for that. I think women are starting to realize that it should be obvious, I think, to all human beings that we have a right to self-defense. If someone initiates the use of force against us, right? Then we should have the right to repel that force, that unreasonable force, with whatever tools that we need to repel it, right? So women, and this is not sexist, but women are physically lighter, smaller, shorter, and so forth than their typical attacker. So there's a disparity of force there that they need to overcome. And when a 250-pound attacker attacks a woman, such as yourself, you should be able to have something that you can use to protect your body and your life from an attacker. So we're finding that a lot more women are and they're interested in protecting their families, because a lot of women now are home alone for whatever reason, single moms, or even if they're married, the husband's away on trips. This is not uncommon. So, they need to feel that they're in control of their environment.
Right. So basically the women get a little power there. But except in New Jersey, where it seems like we don't have the right to carry or the right to...
As long as you're in your home, you do. So I mean that we do encourage those women who are interested in learning self-defense and learning how to properly use a firearm safely. So that gun retention, things like that are very important, because people like to say, by the way, they use false statistics. The other side will tell you you're more likely, if you are a woman and you own a gun, you're more likely to have it used against you. That's a lie. That's an outright lie. There's no proof backing up that statistic whatsoever. So we try to encourage women and men to get the training that they need to use the firearm safely and responsibly.
So do you think that New Jersey is one of the toughest states?
It is. It's probably, if it's not the toughest, it's the second toughest. California is awfully bad as well. And California, they're a little bit off. So they have
We call it the left coast.
Yeah, the left coast. They're a little weird. But we the claim here, when we questioned Governor Christie, who, by the way, although he did do the right thing with regard to both Brian Aiken and also with the bills, he did veto certain bills that we wanted vetoed. He isn't really much of a friend to the Second Amendment as far as we're concerned. He has not done anything whatsoever to promote the right to keep and bear arms. All right. Now, I don't know what bear means to other people, but to me and to the Heller and McDonald Supreme Court justices, it means to carry. So, we need to deal with that. There is no right to carry we have the right to carry, but if you exercise the right to carry in New Jersey, the three branches of New Jersey government will conspire against you to throw you in jail. And that's the truth. The judges, the executive branch is no friend, and the legislature certainly is no friend of the firearms owner.
So we also need to elect good people.
We need to elect good people. We need to elect people who understand rights. Okay, this isn't about guns or not guns. I don't, if a person is not comfortable with owning a gun, then don't own a gun. I don't proselytize. But if you want to exercise your human right that is further protected by the Constitution to keep and bear arms, then you should be able to do that without interference from the government. Because, again, the Second Amendment was intended as a warning to the government. The government does not grant the people their rights. Okay, your rights are pre-existing. It says right in the preamble to the Constitution. We hold these truths to be self-evident, right? We talk about the pre-existing fundamental human rights. Now, whether you believe that they were passed down by the Creator or whether you believe they're natural, a natural part of being born human rather than as a beast of burden, right? A human being cannot exist as a slave. So how do you prevent that from happening? We've seen how many times in history where some dictator, some fascist, some tyrannical government has disarmed the people, and we have seen what's happened.
Right,
it's
and it's
horrible.
so often said that other countries haven't invaded us because we have the right to bear arms.
It's frequently said,
Yes.
The Japanese said that there was we can't, how are we going to attack the Americans on their own soil? There's an American behind every blade of grass with a rifle. And, you know, it's somewhat true.
Wow. So now let me ask you, where do you see the NJ2AS in about, say, 5 years?
I hate to make predictions. I know that it's going to take quite a lot of time. We have to help certain of our legislators find other employment. Okay, one at a time if necessary. Right now we're going for the big fish. We're going after Senate President Sweeney because he was one of the authors of one of the worst, most offensive bills. Luckily, Governor Christie vetoed that bill, but that would have turned everything upside down. He had been a friend of the gun owner, and then all of a sudden, he got pressure from. Can I say the Wicked Witch of the North?
You can.
I can. From Loretta Weinberg and, the Democratic leadership. And it just so happens that, he caved. Do you know that they had the nerve to march in the parents of the children who were slaughtered at Newtown into our legislature, into our Capitol building when we were testifying against these bills?
I believe they did it, yes.
Now, what possible right did they have to do that? Those people should have been home grieving their loss. They shouldn't have been marched like props.
Well, the event shouldn't have been politicized.
It should not have.
That's what happened there.
That's correct. And that's what they do. I mean, some of the things that they tried to pull off were unbelievable. The very first Assembly Law and Public Safety Committee hearing that we had, we showed up, and within 5 minutes, the chairman, Chairman Maynor, said, well, let's vote on this, and then we'll hear the testimony. What, how blatant can you get? You're going to vote on it, and then you're going to listen to the people? So in other words, why are we here? That was just one example. We had plenty of examples. We had situations where there was an open mic at the Senate hearing, and the senators didn't realize it, and they were sitting around like a coven talking about it, and we could hear in the background, oh, confiscate, confiscate, confiscate.
Wow.
Which is really the intention of the gun-grabbing anti-rights lobby. And unfortunately, the Democratic leadership in the state of New Jersey comprises the largest membership of the gun-grabbing anti-rights lobby.
Hey, Frank, I got to cut you. Thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope it was informative.
Very much so. And to our viewers, thank you for watching us today. And for more information on the show, please go to campusteaparties.com. That's campusteaparties.com. Thank you very much.